today on She Slays, I'll be sitting down with Samadanie Kiriwandeniya to talk about empowering through inclusive finance. Samadanie is the former chairman of the SANASA Development Bank and the current managing director of SANASA International. Samadanie, so good to have you here with us today.
Very nice to be with you.
So I'd like to start by talking a little bit about a common theme I saw running through your illustrious career, and that has been one of inclusivity. And this takes me back to an interview I watched of you a few years ago where you said, "I am not a corporate leader, I'm a leader of the people." So can you talk to me a little bit about what made you say that and how that philosophy has influenced the way you work?
Okay, so basically I entered development since I was from the childhood exposed to a birth and growth of a cooperative movement in Sri Lanka, which was spearheaded by my father, but nurtured by about 56,000 voluntary leaders. So I traveled all around the country. I saw how the community can be engaged to determine and design their future. So the inclusivity and the collaborative planning and engaging to design a tomorrow for yourselves has been something that I saw when I was growing up. So what I learned through that childhood experience is that you can create something bigger than what you can see by putting one and one together. If you get more people, more stakeholders involved in designing something that they can build as their development path. So that I think was enhanced by the other learning, whatever the management's learning and development learning that I gathered from universities and other engagement with other career destinations. Everything was probably framed within that experience that I gathered.
So I read somewhere that SANASA has such a wide network, something like 1 in every 21 people in Sri Lanka is part of the SANASA network. So my next question is, what does financial inclusivity mean for you?
Well, any inclusivity means that there are nobody that gets left behind when a community moves forward. So financial inclusivity in that sense is that people who are affected by the financial processes in a country, who are who will have to be benefiting from a financial system, should be able to should have a space to access that system and also access products and processes in doses and in modalities that are suitable to them. So financial inclusion is not just enabling access through digital media or through expanding networks. It's basically enabling access and enabling spaces for people to determine the kind of products and processes and the doses that they should need for their own benefit.
So you said financial inclusion is making sure no one is excluded.
Yeah.
And it touches and it reaches the communities that are often excluded from formal systems. And a large percentage of the people who make up those groups are women. SANASA has been very big on microfinance, and microfinance is more often than not related to women and uplifting women. What role do you see development banks playing in supporting rural women entrepreneurs and women's place in society in general?
Well, most banks, not only development banks, even commercial banks nowadays have products for women. There are differentiated kind of packages that are being presented for women customers. But whether the women actually have money to use these products, whether women know have the financial literacy and the banking literacy to engage with this kind of products to get benefits for themselves is a question. So I think all the banks are trying to cater to the female market. One, because there's a number. But there is also a question of whether there is a scalability with that customer segment. So that is when I think you need to work quite a lot with the customer. When you work with the corporate customers or bigger business customers, they are mostly male customers. So female customers have small, pockets. So the banks are not necessarily interested in, creating better and more differentiated products for the customers because there doesn't seem like there's money to be made.
You mentioned something very interesting, and that was financial literacy. We have seen, I think, worldwide, financial literacy amongst women is lower compared to our male counterparts. How do you think we can improve this situation?
Well, I don't think financial literacy is a problem only for women. I think across all sectors like youth, small businesses, smallholder, farmers, even you will be surprised even in corporate sector, financial literacy is a problem, is an issue. Like most people are not really, not aware of the kind of products that are being served to them by the financial institutions. They don't know how to negotiate and get the best product for them. They are not necessarily savvy with how to handle money and cashless kind of transactions and things like that. So, but when it comes to small businesses, like which doesn't have enough money to have their own accountants or someone to help them to support in this space of financial illiteracy, let's say, I think there are many things that we can do. There are organizations that do a lot of things to promote financial literacy. Central Bank is very keen on improving the financial literacy. Banks are doing a lot of training programs. NGOs and other projects are conducting many, investing a lot of money to improve the literacy, financial literacy. But my take on it is that I think we can do better with financial advisory than financial literacy.
I like that you brought that up because that was going to be my next question. Since you stepped down as chairman of SANASA Development Bank, you took on the role of managing director at SANASA International, and you've been involved in a host of social enterprise projects. And I read somewhere that you are offering financial advisory services to communities in the North and East. So, firstly, what is the difference between financial advisory and financial literacy?
So, financial literacy is something that comes within, like it's basically empowering a customer to learn about numbers, about finance, about the markets, about products, being literate, which takes a long time. Financial advisory is basically someone taking time and trouble to support a person who is trying to get something done from a system, right, in the financial system. So I'm not prioritizing financial advisory over financial literacy. I think both are needed. Financial literacy, if we have a good financial literate community, which is the best thing to have. But currently, most of the small businesses, small women, youth, many people are struggling to establish some business and they are struggling a lot to get technical competencies, market accessibility, product development, other knowledge, standardization, certification, everything related to business. So while they are struggling and trying to establish their business, if they have to also learn about the entire gamut of financial landscape, I think it will take a long time for our businesses to stabilize. So I think we can do better if we groom another set of bankers and people who are studying economics and accounting to start helping some of these small businesses. Hold their hand and walk with them, so that you provide some advisory from the skills that you have, while the small businesses learn about their business and the business related aspects, so that you can walk together. So basically advisory is a short term dose that you give until the customer is ready to start learning about his numbers.
I know it's still a pilot and it's not being rolled out with a huge group, but could you tell me a little bit about the project you all are implementing?
Yeah, so basically there are two groups, right? There's one group of Sri Lankan youth who are studying many things related to finance, anticipating that they will end up working in a financial institution. And most of the financial institutions are going towards digitalization, so there won't be so many number of jobs created for the people who are anticipating to join these banks and other financial institutions. So we are looking at a large number of people with lot of financial knowledge not having proper jobs to engage that knowledge with. Then there's another group of people which is in the mostly semi-formal or informal market space, who are struggling with small businesses, who do not know how to groom their business into a different scale, because in order for that to happen, your business has to go and negotiate with financial institutions and other stakeholders in a language that is not necessarily familiar for the small businesses. So we can make a match by getting the people who know the subject, who know the language, to start working with these small business people and work as a team. So what I did basically was create a matching meeting place where we created a few small market-based financial advisory packages, where if you are a small business and if you have an issue with your business and you want to talk with a bank or an investor, but you don't have the correct language to do that, and you don't know how to articulate your finance, you know what you do with your business, but you don't know how to articulate in numbers, you make a call and get your personal financial advisor and work with that person to work with the external investor or the banker. So that's usually the corporate customers, big businesses, they have their personal financial advisor. But small scale businesses, they cannot afford to do that. And the solutions that have been provided is one-time financial literacy courses, which are operated by highly paid consultants. So there's no replicability in these things. And by the time small business person has a problem, he or she has already forgotten what he or she learned in a financial literacy training program. So what we are proposing is, having a real life advisory solution where when you have a problem, you make a call and you get the assistance from the group of financial advisors that are available for you in the market.
So you're making access to financial advisory and services accessible to all, or at least right now in this pilot group of people.
In a very affordable fee.
Which is amazing and much needed. I have a question. What has it been like? You were at the helm of SANASA Development Bank for 9 years, and now you've transitioned into working in the development sector more so. How has your working style changed now?
Well, when you are in the board, of course, you make policies and you expect the policies to be implemented by the management and the staff. But when you are out of that sphere, you can actually get involved in execution. I was in the execution before I went to the board, which was interesting to see how things happen and how the small pieces hold at a bigger scale, in a single logic. But then you see also the loose ends. And sometimes organized structures do not necessarily have solutions for those loose ends. So currently what I'm doing is, incubating things that can actually glue the, pieces that are not that should be glued together, that should be working together, but are not necessarily working collaboratively. So I'm designing things that can actually link the dots.
You're designing alternative solutions.
I'm designing. I don't know whether they are alternative, but I'm trying to design solutions.
Yeah. Why I said this was I was reading one of your reports recently, and what we have seen is COVID-19 and the pandemic has really shaken things up. And I remember you wrote that what is needed now is alternative solutions to especially financial products and services. So I'd like to ask you, what can Sri Lanka do to move in this direction? How can we make financial services more inclusive through these alternative solutions?
Yeah, I think one thing that we should not do is look at alternative solutions in tools, right? And I think we should really design the alternatives that we want to have, not through tools, right? Something that we should be cautious about is that world is changing. Always corporates are creating new and more tools that can be sold to the market. But if the tools start determining what your lifestyle is going to be or what kind of a life you should be leading, I think we will end up getting lost as a community. So one thing that we need to do as a community, if Sri Lanka has to move forward, is to figure out what it is that we want to have as individuals and as a group and as a community, right? And then see how best the available tools can help us to get there in a cost-effective way, right? Without compromising the diversity and leaving behind a group of people, right? So that's something I think we should be doing. So alternatives will come if we start really pushing and expanding the parameters and asking what we want and why we want that. So once we have the answers for that, then I think tools is the second thing that we need to do. There is a rush to push digital tools to the community as accessibility, but we don't know whether we are getting the correct digital tools and whether they are actually connecting people or isolating people. So after all the accessibility that you have, if you are not happy and if you are not behaving as a human community, there's no point having too much access and too many tools. So that is where I think alternatives should be handled. That is how I think alternatives should be handled.
Interested in something you said. There's a rush to push these digital tools and methods. If COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's that there is an increasing need to be connected digitally and virtually. So how can we balance these two? make sure we're not overwhelming communities and we're not alienating them, but also making sure that they are connected to the digital world, which is taking precedence now.
And we should seriously look into hybrid models, like digitalization is good, of course. Improving accessibility is good, and technology has created spaces where, like, most people who were previously excluded, such as women, lactating mothers, young people, they have a voice now, and they are seen. But on the other hand, I think there is so much centralization and central delivery of messages, like the market drives how we should be thinking. Of course, we can't stop these things, but on the other hand, we can stop these things also if we start empowering the peripheries and allowing the digital processes so that peripheries get more connected, more organized, more communal, and then let those diverse voices come together in a bigger platform, rather than creating one big platform and determining what you are going to download through that platform to a large mass of people, right? So we can handle digital processes in many different ways, but it starts with empowering individuals, locating them in communities. That's what I think.
I think during your tenure at SDB, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there was a move towards digital platforms. Can you talk to me a little bit about what steps you all took and how you made sure it was inclusive of the community you were serving?
We, as a bank, since although we were created with the cooperative sector, and the bigger focus was actually to provide financing to the SANASA movement, and also the people affiliated with that group of people. The bank, as a licensed specialized bank, which then later entered into the stock market, had to grow. So when we had to grow and we had to expand our capital base, we had to make money, profit, and become a bank that can compete in the market with a certain scale. We had to think about low-cost ways of doing these things without compromising the access of the community to still be engaged to design the development path of the bank. So what we basically did was consciously made two pillars. One is digital enabling pillar. One is the cooperative pillar.
Okay.
So we decided to empower and enhance and improve the products that we had within the bank for the cooperative sector. So bank will continue to strengthen the capacities of the cooperative sector to be relevant for the community. Meanwhile, create a digital platform which will enable more access by the large mass to the products that are being offered by the bank. So we basically, unlike probably other banks, SANASA Development Bank has the privilege of two platforms, actually three platforms. One is the brick and mortar, like the branch network. We have about 100 branch network now. And then we have the digital platform that can talk to the large mass to use that and engage with the bank. Then we have the cooperative platform, which has about nearly about 500 to 1,000 village-based cooperative societies that can also deliver services. So in that sense, we were able to comprehensively start a process where we are not falling behind when the banking systems move into digitalization processes. We are into it, but we are also taking the cooperative sector with it.
Yeah, I mean, that is an amazing model. Where do you see it going in the future?
I can't give a definite answer because the banking sector, the path for the banks like SANASA Development Bank is determined by the financial policy of the country. and how the financial policy sees the relevance of this kind of institutions like development banks and cooperative banks. How accountable government and financial policy is to ensure that their people are not left behind. So, those things, those bigger policy level things will determine the survival of a kind of banks. But if the bank can organically grow, I think we are the next generation.
Yes, definitely.
Because it's the inclusive banking model.
Yeah.
And it's also the cooperative banking model. It's a third kind of model that people are looking for. Ethical banking model. But whether we are given the privilege to organically grow, that kind of a model is entirely determined by the market and also the financial policy of the country.
I mean, I think in the market, there is this hunger to move away from the mainstream, and the model you have put forward and SDB has put forward is definitely something that there is an appetite for. So I think there is a lot of scope. But I'd like to end by asking you, the SANASA movement has been so closely linked to women's empowerment. Now that you have moved to SANASA International, how do you plan to take that forward in your work?
At SANASA International, actually, what we are trying to do is SANASA movement in Sri Lanka has been in operation for the last 50 years. And it's a model that's been studied in other countries. We have a lot of learning in this country that can be shared with other development organizations, especially in South Asia and in African continent. Like some of the places, some of the countries are still grappling with issues that Sri Lanka, dealt with in 1970s and early 1980s. And SANASA has learnings that can be shared. So one of the reasons for the SANASA International to be is to share the inclusive development story of SANASA and its lessons and its best practices with the rest of the international development community, which we have done. Like several countries have embraced that. Then the other thing is to get the best practices of inclusive development from the world back into SANASA. So we have a network of about 3,000 to 4,000 strong cooperatives, village-based cooperatives that can replicate some of these best practices in Sri Lanka, like things like value chain oriented financing, then cooperative enterprises working with corporates in synergy. So some of these things, fair trade, businesses. So these are some of the learnings that we can bring to the country so that SANASA movement can practice it and we can share it with the rest of the development workers. So it's an interface between the global
and the
world and the local realities.
And it's something that you all have been doing for decades now.
Yeah.
Samadanie, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
It's very nice to be with you all.